You ready to rock and roll, Bone?
I'm ready.
Well, you said last Wednesday you didn't just come out and call it, but you gave strong indications that you were expecting Bryce Young to at some point flip his commitment from Southern Cal to Alabama. He was in this weekend for the Southern Miss game, and obviously he and Alabama and his family got on the same page. And Sunday evening, he went out on social media and he made it official. He is now an Alabama commitment. And the family has made it clear that they put a lot of thought into this, that they didn't do this lightly, and they understand the ramifications and, said really positive things about Clay Helton and the Southern Cal coaching staff. But clearly, Bryce Young wants to be a part of the Alabama program, and that's a decision that he's made. That he'll continue to be recruited, Bone, by Southern Cal and others, but just based on me being on the outside looking in, this looks like a very firm commitment, but you got more insight. How do you feel about it?
I feel very good about it. I feel very strongly that he is not going to look back at this decision. I think his family's extremely excited. I think and it was tough. I've been talking to his father for the last several months, pretty much all off record. Anytime we talk, and I knew that Bryce was going to go to Alabama. It was just kind of a matter of at what point was he going to announce? Was he going to announce early in the season, middle of the season, later in the season? And, his dad told me a couple months ago. His dad said, as soon as we set up that official visit with Alabama, we are coming in to commit. That's the entire thing. I mean, when we set up that visit, we're coming to commit. And, I learned last week that they were coming in for the official visit, but at the same time, they did not want that out there. They wanted it to be kept just extremely quiet. And I told his dad, I said, well, as soon as he gets on campus, word kind of spreads because, there's so many fans or students or whoever it may be that follow recruiting very closely. They know who Bryce is, and if anybody sees him on campus, it's going to be on a message board. But they were they were willing to take the chance, just kind of keep it quiet until Saturday when we reported the news. I told his dad, I said, all right, he's on the sideline now. There's no hiding it anymore. And he said, okay, go ahead and put it out there that we're on campus. So once we put it out there that he was on campus, it should have been a clear indication that he was going to announce for Alabama. And I've talked to Bryce, I've talked to his dad over the course of the last few days, and they are very excited, very happy. They feel like this is the absolute best situation for them. There's no going back. And I've had a lot of people say, oh, well, what if USC has a great season, continues to win? They're probably doing a little bit better than a lot of people thought. I don't think anyone thought they were going to beat Utah or beat Stanford to open up the season. Of course, Stanford not as good as everyone was assuming they would be. But they do have a couple tough road games coming up at Washington and at Notre Dame, so we may see the season get a little harder for them down the road. But I think regardless of what may transpire the rest of the way, who they may potentially bring in if they do fire Clay Helton, I don't think any of that's going to change their decision at all. They're very excited. They really like Coach Sarkisian. They like the Alabama program. They like the way that Alabama's been able to develop Tua and the way that they throw the ball. But Alabama's not just a passing offense where, as Dad said, they're not a passing offense where they're just going to throw the ball 60 times a game. They mix it up. They run different formations. It's a pro-style offense, and if Bryce is fortunate enough to have a chance to play in the NFL, they feel like Alabama's going to be the best place for them to develop and get prepared for it.
You know how quarterback recruiting goes. I mean, you've got to get as many good ones as you can. But when you get a high-profile commitment like this, immediately people start wondering how it impacts the quarterbacks on the roster, the quarterbacks that are coming in this class potentially or the next class. And by the way, folks, Bone's got a great article out right now, 10 recruiting thoughts at BamaInsider.com. I've got it up on my phone right now, and I'm scrolling through it. You need to get there and read it. I mean, he put a lot of time and effort into writing this. But let's start with Talia and Paul Tyson, which they are freshman quarterbacks this year on the Alabama roster. It looks as though Paul Tyson will redshirt. Talia still has that possibility, although he might play enough that he won't redshirt this year. Let's talk specifically about Talia. Let's say that he's here next year and Young's here next year, and Young wins the job as a freshman. Does Talia look to leave or vice versa? And we'll get to Drake May in a moment. But I guess that's just the way it is in this day and age. You can only play one. You got to get as many good ones as you can on the roster, and you just have to kind of see how it plays out, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And, as long as Tua ends up leaving after this season, as long as he continues on the path that he's going down, he's going to have an opportunity to be, a top 5, maybe possibly even number 1 NFL draft pick next spring. But, you look into the future, it's the guys that are still that are on campus, and then Bryce Young coming in. And Bryce Young, for those that don't know, will be there in January. So he is an early enrollee, so that's going to be huge for him. But there's not a set, number 1 quarterback for next football season. I mean, they're all going to be on equal playing field. They're all going to have an opportunity to earn the starting position. And I think Bryce Young is certainly going to come in and compete extremely well. And I will pretty much guarantee you that we won't know a starting quarterback for the Alabama football team for next fall until game 1. And we may not even know it then. We may see a starter. We may see a guy roll out there one series and then another guy the next series, kind of what we've seen Nick Saban do in the past. So I think we'll just have to kind of wait and see how all that plays out. I can't see anybody really transferring in the spring or before next football season. I think all these guys are going to be competing. Now, maybe after the season next year we see somebody transfer, but everybody's going to be fighting for that number 1 spot. And obviously, you're one play, the number 2 guy one play away from being the starter. So we'll just see how it happens and how it unfolds. Now with Drake May, and I try to make this point in my recruiting thoughts. Drake May is certainly one of the top overall quarterbacks in the country in the 2021 class. And, I think he pretty much knew that Alabama was going after Bryce Young throughout the process, and he loves to compete as well. And he's a great competitor, and having an unbelievable junior season, I think his stock's only going to increase. Does Bryce Young come in and win the starting job and have a great season at Alabama as a true freshman? Will that impact him? We just don't know yet. I think we have to kind of wait and see what happens. I think he'll watch it pretty closely. He is a UNC legacy. His father played there. His brother played on the basketball team. So North Carolina is certainly going to be one of those schools that continues to recruit him, along with several other programs throughout the country. But as we saw a few years ago, Jalen Hurts won the starting quarterback position as a true freshman, SEC Offensive Player of the Year. So many awards, and led Alabama to the national championship, and ends up getting unseated by Tua as a true freshman. So that's something that Drake may have in the back of his mind. Okay, well, Bryce Young did extremely well as a true freshman. Well, I'm going to come in and do better than him and win the starting quarterback position. So you never know what his head may be thinking, and I think we're just going to have to be patient and wait and see kind of how it all plays out over the course of the next year.
Indeed. Listen, if you've got a question for Bone, you can call in on the Bud Light Hotline at 205-342-9904. That's 205-342-9904, and we'll put you on the air with Bone. We're going to do 2 segments because there's so much to cover. All right, the impact of the Bryce Young commitment. And you write about that in your recruiting thoughts, and it might not be as big as people initially thought, simply because he doesn't have a ton of relationships with other recruits. He is good friends, you say, with Trayshawn Holden, an Alabama commitment, but Eric Gilbert is a guy that a lot of Bama fans now have become focused on. They need a big-time tight end. He's as good as there is arguably in the country. What's his relationship with Young, and could Young's commitment impact Gilbert positively for Alabama?
Yeah, I think it helps. They've met at a few camps. They were both at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge together this summer. I think they were both at the opening this summer, so that they know each other from camp settings, and I think that helps out. Going to those kind of camps, helps develop relationships with these guys. Throughout the process. As soon as he committed, though, we started seeing all these, different reports. Oh, this wide receiver is now interested. That wide receiver all of a sudden has Alabama at the top. I was talking to Bryce the other day, and he told me most of his relationships are with guys on the West Coast. That he doesn't really know any of these, wide receivers that Alabama's going after, besides Trayshawn Holden. But he said he is going to start recruiting these guys. He said that he was supposed to get up with Coach Stark this week to go over the guys that they really wanted to target. He did already mention Eric Gilbert as the guy that they would certainly be in contact with and certainly try to recruit. But I think with Eric Gilbert, big time target for Alabama. Alabama needs another tight end, and I think with Bryce Young committing, it certainly shows Eric Gilbert that Alabama's got an elite quarterback in this class, a guy who can be a game changer at position and who can also get the ball to him. So, Eric Gilbert is expected back in Tuscaloosa this weekend on an unofficial visit. It's going to be the second time that he's seen Alabama play this fall. He was also at Alabama's season opener in Atlanta against Duke. I really like Alabama's chances at this time with Eric Gilbert. I don't think it's over by any means, but him coming back on campus this weekend, definitely big for Alabama. And, we've talked about this several times, and I'll continue to mention it. Very early on, it was a Georgia-Tennessee battle. Now it's an Alabama-Clemson battle with the nation's top tight end. And Tennessee's season, I think, that's really helped Alabama and some other programs out. Georgia, I think I think there's a good chance that they end up getting Darnell Washington, the 5-star tight end out of Las Vegas, and possibly Theo Johnson out of Canada. Two big tight ends for them that I think currently projected to sign with Georgia. So I think Eric Gilbert right now, Alabama, Clemson, very high on his list, and I think with Alabama's very pressing needs at the tight end position, with them just getting in an elite player such as Bryce Young, I think that helps them out with Gilbert.
All right, we're going to take a break here on the Gary Harris Show. Bone will be back for another segment with us. We'll get the latest on one of Alabama's top wide receiver targets, plus we'll talk defensive line recruiting as well with Andrew Bone, senior recruiting analyst from BamaInsider.com, part of the Rivals.com network. If you've got a question or a comment for Bone, you can get involved as well in the next segment on the Bud Light Hotline at 205-342-9904. We'll be back with Bone right after this here on the Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9. On him, this is a big target for Alabama, Clemson, Florida, all involved. What's the latest?
Well, Xavier Henderson is going to be making his way back to Tuscaloosa this weekend for an official visit. Big visit for Alabama, getting him back on campus. Alabama's really trying to get one more elite wide receiver in this class. I think their wide receiver class is outstanding with Javon Baker, Thal Jones-Bell, and Trey Holden. I think Trey Holden's actually very underrated. He's a 4-star, but not as highly rated as Baker or Jones-Bell. I think Trayshawn Holden's a outstanding football player, but Alabama's still looking to add at least one more dynamic playmaker to this recruiting class. Xavier Henderson coming in this weekend for an official visit. Last time he visited was during the summer in June, and I posted this on our board. It was kind of just a quick visit. A lot of people kind of made it sound like it was a big visit back in June for him, but it really wasn't. It was just he was kind of just passing through. He spent maybe an hour or two in Tuscaloosa, so it really wasn't one of those in-depth, see everything possible type visits. This weekend will be, and getting him on campus is huge. It's kind of been a Clemson-Florida battle for the longest time with him. A lot of people kind of assumed that Clemson was in the driver's seat his brother is C.J. Henderson, his starting cornerback at Florida. But Alabama still has been recruiting him very heavily for a long time. And like I said, they want to get one more wide receiver in this class, and he's certainly one of the guys on their short list of key targets.
McKinley Jackson, the big defensive lineman, previously committed to LSU, has a really strong relationship with Brian Baker, the Alabama D-line coach. This is a top prospect, but according to your report, he's wanting to wait until signing day, and Alabama may just not be able to hang in that long with him based on the numbers. So are they going to push him for a commitment here, Bone?
I think they will. And I don't know how hard they will make a push. I think they want him. They want him to be a part of the class. And maybe we see a push come, a little bit further down the road, maybe, during some in-home visits, and maybe when we get close to December. But Alabama definitely wants McKinley Jackson. They like him a lot. They've had high interest in him for a long time. As you mentioned, outstanding relationship with Brian Baker, the defensive line coach. They had a very close relationship when Brian Baker was at Mississippi State. So that's been a 2-3 year relationship that's been going on. So I definitely think that he likes Alabama a lot. But the longer he waits, I think the more it's going to be difficult for him to be in Alabama's class because of the number situation. I mean, Alabama's already really tight on numbers. And they're heavily recruiting some other guys. So if they end up getting some other commitments, especially at the defensive line position, it could eliminate a spot for him. So, right now he's safe. I think right now he's got a spot, but you just never know how the numbers may shake out in the end. But, but if Alabama doesn't add any more defensive linemen, then he could have a spot, all the way until the end of the road. But, big visit for him this weekend coming in. It's going to be, obviously going up against Ole Miss, who's also on his short list of top schools. So we'll see how that shakes out and see if he potentially, wants to go ahead and make an early decision.
Jordan Birch, the edge pass rusher out of Columbia, South Carolina, has been compared to everybody from Jadeveon Clowney to Deshaun Hand as great prospects coming out of high school. 6'5", 250. Clearly, he's one of the top players in the country. But he doesn't say a lot. You believe Clemson still has the edge. Obviously, Georgia's pushing. Alabama's pushing. It's just hard to get a lot of info on this guy. Do you think Alabama is a realistic option at this point for Jordan Birch?
I think they're in it. I still, and as you just said, I still kind of give the edge to Clemson. I mean, proximity to home, their development of defensive linemen, the way that they have. Obviously become a national powerhouse program. A lot of people kind of have assumed that it's been a Clemson-Georgia battle for him. Now, he's from Columbia, South Carolina. So South Carolina's obviously in it, but I just don't see him going to South Carolina. I think Clemson is currently in the driver's seat, even though there's not really much to go off that. That's just kind of a gut feel. But Alabama's still heavily involved with him. They're still heavily recruiting him. And they would really like to get him as part of this class, and he'll make an official visit to Alabama down the road. He'll get the in-home visit from Nick Saban before he makes that decision. So Alabama's still very much in it for him.
All right, I want to ask you about Jamil Burroughs. When he decommitted from Georgia, a lot of people just expected a commitment to be forthcoming to Alabama. We know, like I said, numbers are an issue here. Is Alabama the leader for the big defensive tackle out of Powder Springs, Georgia?
Yeah, I think they are. I think it's just kind of a matter of timing. Whenever he wants to announce that decision, I think Alabama still would take him. We'll just have to wait and see when he decides to do something. But I do believe Alabama will get his commitment at some point. And like I said, we did all assume that he was going to commit, shortly after he decommitted from Georgia. But decided to wait. We've seen some kids that have decided to wait a little while longer, like Joel Williams, who was going to commit a couple weeks ago, decides to hold back. But I still like Alabama's chances with Jamil Burroughs right now.
All right, real quickly, we're getting up against time. Timothy Smith, is he still firm in his commitment, defensive tackle out of Sebastian River in Florida?
He's still committed, but he's still taking visits, especially to Florida. He's visited Gainesville a couple times since his commitment to Alabama, and I would continue to watch out for Florida because they're pressing very hard for him.
And Alfred Collins and Reggie Grimes both on officials this past weekend for the Southern Miss game.
Alfred Collins, definitely a kid to watch. 6'6", about 280 pounds. Has suddenly become a top Alabama target. Has the top 3 of Alabama, Texas, and Texas A&M. Not going to decide for a while. I had a great official visit. Reggie Grimes, still not really sure where he fits in with Alabama's class. As of right now, see him probably going elsewhere.
And as we wrap up, you're great at tipping us off, giving us little clues. We've talked a lot about the top guys, but do you have any kind of feel for when the next commitment may come and who it might be? Just a little tidbit, little clue.
Well, as always, I always like to watch what happens this weekend on campus. A lot of big names coming into Tuscaloosa, especially Eric Gilbert. Gilbert's been saying for a while that he wanted to make a decision early in his senior season, and he's taking some visits to some of his top schools. Now he still has his official visits, but could he potentially go ahead and commit this weekend? That's something that we're going to be watching very closely. All
right, folks, you just got a lot of great information for free, but it really is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm telling you, if you want all of Bones in detail recruiting information, get to BamaInsider.com. Get you a membership. You can follow him on Twitter as well at Andrew J. Bone, and, of course, catch him every Wednesday at 9:30 here on the Gary Harris Show. Thanks so much, Bone.
No problem, Gary. Thank you.